Alright y'all, welcome back to the channel and to some more turkey patterning, and today we've got another really interesting head-to-head comparison to test. This is a case of factory, big box store, big name manufacturer, mass-produced load versus a hand load, kind of custom oriented shell. However, both of which have shown us some absolute hammers for patterns so far, so I'm really curious to see what they will do when we put them side by side through the same choke. And we haven't tested either one of these shells through this particular choke combo yet either, so I'm really curious to see what this entire combo and comparison side by side actually looks like, because there's a real possibility that we get some of the best patterns we've seen in a long time from both of these shells. But for the loads I brought today, these are our two contenders. For the factory mass-produced load, we've got the Winchester Longbeard TSS, and for the custom hand load, we've got the epic Shotshell TSS loads, both of which are a 28 gauge 2 3/4 inch 1 1/4 ounce payload of TSS 9s at 1,050 for each one of them. The epic load is part of their extreme pattern lineup, which is designed to give you less flyers and really condense that pattern down. However, we've seen pretty much the same story from these Longbeard TSS loads as well, especially the 28 gauge loads. Both of these we know are heavy hitters, but is there one that's going to be better than the other? I really don't know yet, but I expect both of them to continue their typical trend of giving us absolutely nasty patterns. As for the setup we're going to run them in, I brought out my Tristar Viper 28 gauge. It's got a 28-inch barrel on it, and we're going to be running both of those loads through the Patternmaster Code Black Turkey. This is a 515 constriction, and it has shown to be a very nasty performing choke on its own as well, with a wide variety of different shells. We have not tested either of these loadings through this particular choke yet, so we'll also see how they do through it just as a shell and choke combo test as well. And it is a 515 constriction. We have tested the Longbeards through another 515 true lock choke with some devastating patterns, but this will be a little more constriction than the Indian Creek 520 that we tried the epic shells through recently. So how much tighter of a pattern can we get? There's a real possibility of it getting pretty ridiculous with this combo. But for our test today, everything's going to be run the same as usual. I've got both turkey targets side by side at 40 yards and the chrono to get our velocities. So let's get you guys a view of those targets, take both of our shots, and then we'll head down to the pattern board and see how they both compare when put head to head. I expect some absolutely nasty patterns, so let's take our shots and see just how ridiculous we might be able to get from these two. Alright, so for our chronograph numbers, both shells are claiming 1,050, and both were a little bit faster than that from our 28-inch barrel. The epic shells gave us 1126, and the Winchester Longbeard TSS gave us 1106. So 20 or so feet per second difference, pretty nominal. I would say they're probably moving about the same velocity on average, but let's head down there to 40 and see if one is better than the other when it comes to factory versus custom hand load. I think both patterns look pretty good, but let's go check it out. Alright, well, here we are down at our 40-yard papers. We have the epic shell on the left, the Winchester Longbeard TSS on the right, both of which are pretty nice looking patterns, but I definitely think we're going to have one winner. We'll take closer looks at them, we'll pull the targets down and actually finish drawing our circles and stuff around the patterns here in a minute, but I do think there's probably going to be a pretty clear winner here, at least with these two particular shots through that choke combo. But first we'll move over to the left with our epic shell, and I definitely think our core favored a touch to the right on this particular shot. I don't believe that one was me, especially not when the Winchesters are right on the money, but that's a perfect example of how different shells, even when you put them through the same choke, can impact slightly different locations. But we'll move in and look at our core, which is kind of right along the right edge of that turkey target. Pretty even spread there. It's only a 1 1/4 ounce payload, so not nearly as many pellets as you would have in some other shells out there on the market. However, it's a nice even spread of pellets. No major voids or nothing like that in there. So we do have a pretty decent core to work with there. That's absolutely 40-yard capable all day long. You can see, even though we favor to the right, we do still have a dead turkey. There's one through the eyeball and a number more down the spine. However, looking at the edges, we definitely have a lot of straggly stuff down there off the bottom and the left. That kind of continues up here towards the top. A few little splotchy, stringy bits up there as well. This is not a bad pattern by any means. However, the last time we tested these epic shells through the Indian Creek 520, they were substantially better than that. That's a little more inconsistent than what I would expect from an epic shell, especially in their extreme pattern line that is designed to get rid of some of those stringy flyers around the edges. So not perfect, although it is not bad at all. It's absolutely 40-yard capable. However, when compared to our Winchester Longbeard TSS now, you can see massive difference here. We were centered up better on the paper with that shot. We absolutely have a dead bird. There's a lot of pellets right around that bird's head and neck area there as well. It's a hot core, plenty of pellets to do the job. But the big difference, look at the edges here. Maybe a couple little stringy bits up there at the top. Maybe one or two other flyers around the very outskirt edges. Maybe those two on the far right over there. But pretty much everything that counts is right there where you want it to be in that turkey paper. So as for the core area, it's probably going to be relatively similar. Probably going to have a good handful more pellets in it with these Winchesters compared to these epic shells, at least with these two shots. But I think when we draw our bigger circles, the actual 20-inch hunting pattern leeway circle is going to show a big difference between the two. Already, I definitely prefer the Winchesters through this particular choke. This is a nasty pattern, no doubt about it. 40-yard capable all day long for a 28 gauge. But now I'll pull these targets down, we'll draw some better circles, and really compare the two. Okay, so now I've pulled our turkey targets down, drawn 10 and 20-inch circles up around our patterns, and I definitely think we have a clear winner, at least between these two particular shots through that particular choke. It may be different if we run these shells through other chokes, but with this one, I think there's a pretty clear and obvious difference. Starting back over here on the left with our epic shells, we have 219 pellets within our 10-inch core area. Beautifully even, ton of pellets to work with, fantastic looking core. Outside of that, we have our 20-inch circle with 153 additional pellets within it. And the bottom of it looks pretty decent, but it does get a little thin up there around the top as well. That 20-inch circle is really the leeway you get when you're hunting, because you may not always get that perfectly dead centered up core type of hit on the bird you're trying to aim at. So it's a little thin outside of our 10-inch circle. And as far as the flyers and stuff around the outskirt edges, you can really see how we have a bunch of them down there off the bottom and to the left. We have 48 total pellets outside of the 20-inch circle there. Still not a ton in the grand scheme of things, but it is very noticeable for sure. Either way, that is still a good pattern, don't get me wrong. That core area is nasty. That's a solid 40-yard pattern, but I don't think it beat out the Winchesters. Because here is the Winchester Longbeard TSS pattern. Big difference immediately, and I am really impressed with this combo. Inside our 10-inch circle, we have 275 pellets compared to 219 from the epic shells. Still very hot, very even. Outside of that, with our 20-inch circle, we have 186 additional pellets in there compared to only 153 with the epic loads. And you can see how much more even it is. It's pretty even until you get all the way to the outer edges of that 20-inch circle. And that's because we only have 17 pellets outside of our 20-inch circle. I counted all those, 17 pellets outside of the 20. That is pretty impressive for sure. That is a nasty pattern. That is just about perfect in my opinion. It's tight, it's got the hot core, it does give you a little bit more even leeway to work with in the 20-inch ring, and you don't have a ton of flyers to worry about either. I really like that pattern and I'm pretty impressed. So between these two here, both are absolutely going to hammer a bird at 40, but with this particular test, it seems like the Winchester Longbeard TSS definitely prefers that 515 Patternmaster a little bit more than what those epic shells do over there on the left. And this may be a different story if we change chokes and run this exact same test again between these two. Things could definitely change, but after seeing these results, those Winchester Longbeard TSS shells over there on the right are going to be real hard to argue with for sure, especially when you can go buy them right off the store shelf most of the time at Cabela's or Bass Pro pretty easily, as well as a variety of other stores. So very nice results today, especially from those Winchester Longbeard shells. And here are two wads from those shells. You have your Epic on the left and your Winchester on the right. A little bit different wad design, but both of them look just fine. One has the fiber piece down in there from the Epic loads, and the Winchester has one pellet still sitting in the wad. Did that one pellet make a difference? No, absolutely not. And you can see a little bit of buffer material down in there as well on that Winchester. Overall, a little different wad design, but both of them did what they were supposed to do. Nothing I'm concerned with here. Alright y'all, well, what did you think about these two results right here? I expected some nice patterns from both of those shells. That Winchester's definitely gave it to us, no doubt about it. That's exactly what I expected to see from those shells. As far as the Epic loads go, really nice 10-inch core. Outside of that though, gets a little bit more splotchy. We definitely strung a good bit more pellets outside around the edges than the Winchesters gave us. Again, this is one shot from each shell through one choke. If we did this with 10 shells consecutively of each back to back, we may see something different. However, I'm definitely calling the winner as these Winchester Longbeard TSS loads. You can't go wrong with either one. For a 28 gauge, both are going to be hammers out to 40 yards. But for what they are, these Winchester Longbeard TSS loads, especially the 28 gauge ones, I don't think have ever shown us a disappointing result. Through the variety of chokes we've tested them in, they've always been pretty similar to that right there. So they're just hard to argue with. With a big box store mass produced shell, I don't really see any need to go to a custom load that's way more expensive necessarily, when you can get those pretty easily as well. So to each their own, can't go wrong with either one, but I'm taking the Winchesters out of today's test anyway. So leave all your thoughts down below. Is that about what you expected to see? Were you a little surprised one way or the other? Have you tested either one of these loadings? And if so, what kind of results have you seen? Which one of these combos would you prefer to have? And which one do you think won? I think it's probably pretty obviously going to be the Winchesters for most people, but you can let me know your thoughts about it down below, as well as what other tests do you want to see me do like this, whether it be choke versus choke with one shell, two different loads side by side with the same choke, or maybe some more factory mass-produced loads versus some hand load or custom load type stuff. Let me know what you guys might want to see down below. But with that being said, I've got some more testing to get done for you guys, so I'm going to get back to it. As always, we have the channel Instagram as well as the mailbox where you can send stuff if you'd like. All the information will be in the description if you're interested in it, but I'm going to get back to it, so I'll see y'all in the next one.